What's up, buddies? It's Concert Buddy. Today's video, just a quick recap of what I picked up for the Record Store Day drops, Record Store Day Light, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the titles that ran long and they couldn't produce in the April Record Store Day dropped, and I want to walk you through what I picked up. Cue the lever. I'll see you in a second. Buddies, topic du jour is RSD drops, but first, the most important thing I'm going to say in this video is Happy Father's Day to anyone at home watching that's a father themselves, a grandfather, an aspiring father with a baby on the way, or just celebrate your dad if you're not a father. Whoever you are, Happy Father's Day. It's an awesome day. It's the one day a year, the Hallmark holiday, if you will, to recognize dads across hopefully the globe. I think probably predominantly a U.S. holiday, but if my friends in Canada or across the pond, Happy Father's Day to all you guys. But anyway, record channel, Record Store Day, let's get into it.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
So buddies, I gotta say that, in all the years I've been doing Record Store Day, and obviously all the COVID situation last couple of years, and they had the different drops, this past was called Record Store Day drop just for the sake of consistency. Yesterday, Saturday the 18th, it's very unusual in a lot of ways. First, I went to one of my locals to start the day, and I wasn't like super ambitious like I normally am. Like usually I'll get to one of my locals at like hours and hours in advance. But for some reason I was like, I'm just going to kind of take this one chill. I might have overdone it a little bit in the April Record Store Day, so I was trying to be a little bit more conservative or a little more pointed or focused on what I was going after, a little more intentional, if you will. So I was going for originally 4 titles, and I kind of ballooned it to 5, and I was going to stay at 5, which I'll show you in a second. But I roll up to my local store this go around. I decided to do vintage vinyl, which is kind of like the OG, the granddaddy, probably the one that started it all in our St. Louis record store vicinity. And mainly because I knew they had more buying power, they're a bigger store. I figured that would give me the luxury of rolling up an hour ahead of open and being able to get most of the things I was looking for.
That's correct, sir.
Good news is that seemed to be a successful strategy. The bad news, I don't say bad news, just the interesting news was, I roll up an hour before they open, and I'm maybe 20th in line, which I was pretty happy with. But then I noticed there wasn't, in the hour between when I got there and when they opened, maybe 10 or 15 people came in behind me, so really a light line. So it was very interesting in that there were some great titles, I thought. I mean, what I'll show you in a second, but Prince, Pearl Jam, some really interesting pieces, but the turnout was really just unusual. And from talking from other folks in the VC, later in the day I went to Riverbend Records, talking to Billy Hurst there, same kind of thing. The kind of vibe was very just different. And it could be maybe there wasn't a lot of advertising for this Record Store Day. Maybe people were burned out because there was I think there was over 280 something titles in April. This one, I think it was like 80 something. So maybe a little Record Store Day fatigue. Obviously, global economic situation going on with inflation and so forth, but it's just an unusual thing. And the good news is, for me at least, roll up an hour in, get into the store, got everything I was looking for, in and out in, I don't know, I think I was out in 20 minutes, checked out, right? So that was good, but just a really different Record Store Day drops, if you will. So I will say that, again, from talking from other folks in the VC, talking to Billy, I think that the under the radar release this year, and I didn't pick it up in my initial purchase, was the Nicki Minaj release. It was, I guess, 3,000 released, and again, I'm not, like, I think Nicki Minaj is fine. I I have her on guest rapping on some of the hip hop records I have. But apparently this was the title to go after because, and I say that, Billy had said that was his experience at his store. I noticed this morning when I got up Sunday I guess it's Sunday the 18th, 19th? I'm really bad at the dates, but day after record store day. Usually that's when all the online leftovers can be put on by the local record store. So I noticed Plaid Room only had 8 going into the morning, so I thought that was interesting. So I tried picking one up just out of curiosity, and Plaid Room went boom like that. Amoeba didn't even offer it. Mike at the In-Groove, he didn't even offer it. I did end up tracking down a copy at Guest Room Records in Louisville, but it really unusual because the early read was Prince and Pearl Jam and many other titles. Collective Soul, I think, was perceived to be a really hot title. This Nicki Minaj, just crazy. But if you think about it, I think it was a year before last, The Weeknd put out like an EP that if you go on Discogs now, it's like crazy in price, sold out right away. Even a couple years before that, when Miley Cyrus released Bangers on vinyl, the pink vinyl, that was another one. Now it's like a $400 record. So I guess it's just that the interesting thing about records today is who comes, right? And if you remember from the April release, when they had that Taylor Swift 7-inch, a lot of new people came to record store day, and a lot of them were by design Taylor Swift fans. And obviously there was a very finite allocation on how those 7-inches came out. But just interesting to see that this Nicki Minaj apparently was the sleepy hit of record store day.
The belle of the ball.
Let's get into what I picked up.
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
So I think the number one album, or one of the top most sought after titles this drop, was this Prince release, The Gold Experience. It was previously put out on vinyl and kind of like a promo state. It was a nondescript cover. I think they tried to replicate a lot of what that release looked like, aside from the color vinyl. But this one, very expensive, the original pressing on the aftermarket. So this was a welcome reissue. I think they pressed like 20,000 plus of this. So this was not in short supply, but I think Billy had even said he sold out of his allocation right away. But very interesting album. The one song I know that I was this is terrible, that I was very interested in listening to on this record when I open it is going to be, and pardon my language, it's called Pussy Control.
You can take somebody out of the trailer park, but he'll always be white trash.
I remember it from like going to the clubs when I was in college in the early 2000s or whatnot, and DJs would put this song on, and I tell you, it was one of those songs. It's kind of like soccer moms at a Nickelback concert. Like as soon as they put that music on, you see a whole different side of people. Same thing. I'd go to the club and they'd put Pussy Control on, and boy, the females would just get crazy, buck wild. I'd never seen anything like it. So it's an interesting memory that I have of that song. It's a pretty jazzy song, right? But it's obviously very very intentional in what the song's about. Anyway, this comes on gold vinyl, 2 LPs. I did see on some of the message boards that some copies may have a little warp to them, so I'll be interested to see if my copy has that. But again, how I feel about quality control issues. Let's look at the next one. All right, another one of the coveted titles for this RSD drop was this Pearl Jam live recording. It's called On Two Legs. This came two albums, clear vinyl, I think is what the treatment was. Again, this is like the Prince release. Original copies of this are like buku bucks. So a much needed, a much desired re-release. I don't think I have every single Pearl Jam release on vinyl because, through their web store, they do a lot of the live recordings, and it's just hard to keep up, to be honest with you. But I've heard good things about this one. Any type of live recording, it's hit or miss. I'm usually, I gotta be honest, usually disappointed sometimes in these live recordings because in fairness, it's hard to really take a live recording and master it in a good way that this really has a lot of soundstage and a lot of oomph behind it. So I haven't heard any feedback yet on how this sounds. I'll be popping this open sometime soon, probably this week. So looking forward to getting this on my turntable.
Are you careful with your personal record?
So this record was one that I was kind of on the fence about. This Ray Charles Genius Loves Company. This is a a record that basically a lot of collaborations with a lot of artists: Norah Jones, James Taylor, Elton John, Natalie Cole, Willie, like a really interesting roster of collaborators. I do know that, again, original copies of this are crazy in the aftermarket, so part of that kind of was fueling my decision tree. Another part was, I like Ray Charles, and this was something he did toward the end of his career. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but part of the logic involved in some of my purchases now are if I'm kind of interested, I've figured out you just got to strike, because at worst, if it's something that you don't connect with or you don't vibe with, you can obviously resell it, gift it, do whatever. But if it's something that you decide later on, if you didn't purchase it, oh yeah, I'd like to try that out. The way the aftermarket is now, with FOMO and all these tricky marketing techniques. I even talked about some of that in a recent video, link somewhere over here. But yeah, so a lot of that kind of creeps into your mind. So this was one that, like I said, originally I started at 4 titles, and then this was the title that kind of put it over the top. I'm like, I'll get 5. So this was my 5th title that I kind of decided to pull the trigger on. So I'm sure it's going to sound great. Very optimistic. It came on opaque gold vinyl. I think gold, obviously, Prince release coming on gold, being the gold experience, makes a lot of sense. Gold seems to be the color de jour of this RSD drop.
How on earth did you even think of it?
All right, so this title may be getting some vitriol in the comments. We'll see how it goes, but this is Dearly Beloved. This is the latest album from Daughtry. You may remember Daughtry. He was on American Idol, like maybe the 4th year. I think he came in like 4th or 5th. He was the rocker guy. The reason I really enjoyed his early work in particular is through American Idol, he collaborated with Live, Ed Kowalczyk and those guys. One of my favorite bands, to be frank. So that kind of put him on my radar. And in his first release, it was a really good album. He had a song on there with Slash. He had some radio hits like Feels Like Tonight or Home. Like a really great album. And even his first 4 releases were like good rock albums. Like even, again, I don't know what changed. And I say his first 4 albums because then I feel like his career kind of took a change. Whatever the root cause was, I don't know. I'm not a mega fan. I really can't tell. But I do know a friend of mine was a huge fan of this guy and in his band. And he put out an album that was what I'll call Mumford inspired. The sound du jour of the time was Mumford or Lumineers or bands of that ilk that were kind of like Americana-based banjos and like kind of a very organic sound. And so, Daughtry, they made an album like that, and I really felt it was, I'm gonna be frank, just wasn't for me. I felt they were kind of chasing trends at that point. So I hadn't really even thought about Daughtry in a while. But then I think through Sirius, I heard the lead release on this album is called Heavy Wears the Crown. Heavy is the Crown, pardon me. And really strong rock song. So I did a little research after I heard that, and again, a lot of the pre-release press is back to basics. It's very similar to like sports, where a guy is looking for a bounce back year, and their publicist puts all this promotional noise about they're getting back to who they are, and they're back to training, and they've never been in better shape. Very similar kind of noise was coming out of the Daughtry camp in advance of this release. So I think this is the only Daughtry album on vinyl, so that kind of piqued my interest too. Like I said, the first 4 albums, really, really cool rock albums. I'd love for those to get reissued maybe on vinyl someday. Probably a licensing thing, so we'll see. But call it curiosity, morbid curiosity. But I felt like this would be just, it's kind of, this was Record Store Days about. It's like, hey, kind of have an interest, give it a whirl. And again, if this is something I don't like, it sounds like crap. If it's something that's sourced digitally and they just did a terrible mastering job, I'll just get off of it, right? But go ahead, fill up the comments with jokes, make fun of me. I am welcoming it because I think this will be well worth it. All right, so the last Record Store Day I picked up was the Royal Tenenbaums soundtrack. Obviously, you can see interesting movie. These Wes Anderson movies, I always kind of enjoy them, not because they're like my favorite top 10 movies, but they're always an interesting, nuanced story, and generally the soundtracks are pretty good on this one. For this, it's kind of a very eclectic group of songs. You've got Bob Dylan on here. You've got The Clash. You got the Ramones, Velvet Underground, Elliott Smith. So a very diverse group of recordings on this. And I believe this might have been originally earmarked for the April Record Store Day. I feel like this was pushed at some point. So again, one of those things where I have a hard time thinking that they'll ever repress this, or at least anytime soon. So blessed as I am, feeling a little saucy, but also, like I said, trying to keep it to about 4 or 5 albums this go around. Figured this would be a nice one to pick up. So happy to add this. We'll see what it sounds like. Looking forward to putting this on the turntable.
But now the forbidden fruit must be tasted.
Guys and gals and anybody in between, what did you pick up for Record Store Day drops, or affectionately called Record Store Day Light? Like I said, different vibe. Attendance or participation was very different than in years past with these drops. So I'll be curious to see what people are adding, and I'll probably go back and hit my locals up maybe today or tomorrow and just kind of see what was left over. It's a different vibe. So again, I'll be curious if this is just an outlier, if you will, or if it's maybe a sign of things to come with the advance in pricing and global economic inflation concerns, gas prices, all these things are kind of snowballing into maybe the vinyl resurgence is maybe kind of slowing down. I use resurgence lightly, but let's just say that the fervor that we've seen in past Record Store Days was a little bit more tapered, a little bit more tempered. So we'll see how it goes, but a very interesting Record Store Day drop nonetheless. So tell me what you guys got. I'm very curious to see, because again, what I got's for me. Did I miss something that really I probably should have picked up that was just gangbusters, something that's awesome? Let me know, because again, I don't know. I only know what I know. But I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for checking it out, subscribing, doing all that good stuff. And until we meet again, when you get the chance, just spin it. I'll see you again.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Well, we out of time.